My first memory is of that snowy day.
Vampire Knight was a dark fantasy romance anime released in 2008 consisting of two 13-episode series. It received the usual slew of light novel and audio drama tie-ins as well as a Nintendo DS dating sim. I found this series while looking for a shoujo manga during my Twilight phase, and I'm sure the show owes a lot to the supernatural romance genre that was booming at that time. So looking back at Vampire Knight a decade later, how does it hold up? The show is about a young girl named Yuki who is orphaned at a young age and saved from a rogue vampire by a vampire pureblood named Kaname Koran. She's adopted by Cayenne Cross, the founder and headmaster of an academy in which the school is divided into a day and night class, the night class being populated entirely by vampires. Also taken in by Cayenne is a boy named Zero Kiryu, a vampire hunter in training whose family was killed by a vampire. The series focuses on the interpersonal relationships between Yuki, Zero, and Kaname. As the series continues, the story branches into directions such as vampire power struggles and discoveries relating to the characters' personal histories. This retrospective contains spoilers for Vampire Knight and Vampire Knight Guilty. If you're interested in watching the show without prior knowledge, I'd recommend returning to this video after you've finished watching. While discussing the plot of Vampire Knight, I'm going to avoid acknowledging certain plot elements that develop deeper into the series to provide a more honest retelling of events in a way in which the story is told. As such, if you're familiar with the series, then be patient with me while I feign ignorance of key details revealed later during my summary. One more thing. This show is difficult to summarize in a condensed manner without merely relaying the events of every episode out, scene by scene. So I will merely be relaying plot points that have a major impact on the direction of the show and are relevant to any discussion I want to make regarding the series. The series begins 10 years after the night that Yuki's parents were killed by a rogue vampire, something this show refers to as a Level E. A Level E is a vampire that was originally human that has become a mindless beast due to an insatiable bloodlust. It is a fate shared by all humans that are turned into vampires, which only occurs when a human is fed upon by a pure-blooded vampire. Yuki and Zero are students at Cross Academy and serve as the school's guardians, due to the two being the only humans that know the truth behind the night class. Their guardian duties mostly consist of maintaining a safe transition between the night class and the day class when the classes switch over in the evenings and in the mornings. When the show begins, Zero has begun acting strange, ditching his school guardian duties and mostly staying alone. It's revealed that Zero was bitten during the attack on his family and that Zero has begun to awaken as a vampire. He struggles to resist all of his vampire urges and begins to resent himself due to his deep-seated hatred of them. His vampire nature is kept secret from Yuki, only being known to Kaname and Cayenne. Yuki discovers Zero's secret one night when, during a spell of extreme hunger, he bites her. Kaname, sensing Yuki's blood, rushes to the scene and whisks Yuki to the infirmary after she faints from the loss of blood, leaving Zero with the realization of what he has done. Cayenne is told by the head of the Vampire Hunter Association that a vampire hunter will be sent to Cross Academy to keep an eye on Zero. When that hunter arrives, it is revealed that this man, Toga Yaguri, was Zero's mentor. After a confrontation with Yaguri is stopped by Cayenne, Yuki discovers that Zero is unable to be satiated by the blood tablets that the vampires of the school subside on. In what is said to be a taboo action, Yuki offers Zero her blood in an arrangement to save him from falling to Level E whenever his hunger becomes too strong. Yuki is later confronted by Kaname, who senses the truth of what has happened. Later, Yaguri informs Zero that the woman who attacked him and his family is still alive, and that the only way for Zero to avoid falling to Level E is to take her blood. As Cross Academy's school ball approaches, a new student transfers to the night class, a suspicious young girl that the show gives little time before revealing as being possessed by the woman who had turned Zero, Shizuka Hio. Soon after, Zero's history is revealed in complete detail. Zero was born with a twin, a feat uncommon in vampire hunter families due to the frequency of the stronger twin absorbing the weaker one. This birth resulted in his twin, Ichiro, being sickly and growing up developing a complex regarding his inferiority to Zero in their hunting training, and believing that their parents thought of him as a burden. Through the machinations of puppet masters behind the scenes, Shizuka was sent on a revenge crusade against the Kiryu family when they killed a vampire in her thrall to whom she had fallen in love. With the help of a scorned Ichiro, she killed the Kiryu parents and turned Zero. The show builds to a confrontation between Zero and Shizuka after she returns to her own body. Shizuka is injured and Zero and Ichiru fight, only to be stopped by Yuki. During that fight, Shizuka retreats to recover, but is killed by Kaname, who absorbs her power. This cliffhanger regarding Kaname's scheming and Zero's now incurable fall to level E ends the first series. When Vampire Knight Guilty begins, the fallout of Shizuka's death begins with Zero being targeted by the Vampire Senate, though they are stayed by Kaname. Yuki begins to see flashes of her past before the night she was saved by Kaname. She seeks out information about her past at the Vampire Hunter Association, only for all of the records of her past to be destroyed. Soon after this, a vampire ball is held. Yaguri and Zero attend as emissaries of the Vampire Hunter Association, and Zero notices that Ichiru has returned and is amongst the vampires. Yuki inadvertently ends up at the ball where she sees Kaname being offered many aristocratic vampires as brides, much to her dismay. After returning to the room Kaname had asked her to remain in, Kaname sits with Yuki and the two talk. Kaname then asks Yuki if she would like to become a vampire and spend eternity with him. She hesitates, and Kaname takes her silence as a no. He accepts the rejection, telling her that he would never do that kind of thing to her. After the school break, and once the students have returned to Cross Academy, Kaname asks Yuki to be his lover, putting her under the guard of the entirety of the night class due to obligation. The night class mostly assumes that this is a ruse to keep Yuki safe from some danger that only Kaname knows about. Yuki's flashes of memories continue to get worse until she collapses and is placed in the infirmary, still under 24/7 protection of the night class. While Yuki is under this protection, it is shown that one of the night class students has become possessed by a powerful pure-blooded vampire named Rito. Yuki's episodes progress and continue to get worse until the night when Kaname arrives and takes Yuki, Zero giving chase. Kaname takes Yuki to the academy roof and drinks Yuki's blood. Before Zero, or even the audience, can react to the idea of Yuki being turned by Kaname, the truth of Yuki's past is revealed. Yuki is actually a pure-blooded vampire of the Kuran family. When Yuki regains consciousness, she recalls her past. Her parents died protecting her and Kaname from Rito, her mother using her power to turn Yuki into a human and erasing her memories. Zero retreats to his room and Yuki decides that to protect Zero, she has to push him away. Arriving to him, she tells him that her awakening as a vampire destroyed the human side of her. Kaname, meanwhile, finds the body of Rito, still unawake and possessing Shiki. Ichiro is revealed to have been working under Rito, with his goal being to kill him due to his role in the murder of Shizuka's lover. Kaname stabs himself to give Rito the blood needed to revive. Kai and Cross evacuates the day class from the academy as an army of level E vampires loyal to Rito descend upon the school. Under the guidance of Kaname, Ichiro confronts and shoots Zero and, having been injured by Rito, forces Zero to drain him. Zero staggers out, setting out to protect Yuki and to kill Kaname. Yuki confronts Rito with the night class as Kaname goes to the Vampire Senate, laying waste to all of the members and demolishing the building. Meanwhile, in the fight against Rito, Yuki is overtaken by him. Zero arrives to save Yuki, however he is overcome by the power of 2 vampire hunters and 3 pure-blooded vampires being inside of his blood. With the help of Yuki, Zero comes to and shoots Rito, who disappears in the confusion. Kaname arrives at the academy and finds an injured Rito, taunting him with his inescapable demise. Zero approaches and kills Rito, only to be stopped from killing Kaname by Yuki. Afterwards, Kaname informs the vampires that the night class will be disbanded and that they are free to go. Many of the vampires decide to continue to follow Kaname. Elsewhere, Zero and Yuki talk on the roof of the academy, Zero vowing that when they next meet, he will kill her. Yuki says her goodbyes to her father, and with Kaname and the loyal band of vampires, they leave the academy together. Vampire Knight as an anime has major issue with its pacing. It seems that most of the runtime of the show is spent replaying flashbacks or having characters restate things in monologues that have been said before. This really seems like padding, especially when things happen later in the show that really could use more of an explanation or clarification. During the first series, the slow pace of the show makes reveals seem obvious, and during the second series, the audience is left without a lot of desperately needed exposition. Angst is, understandably, a major aspect of the series, and completely unavoidable. The melodrama oozes out of every scene, especially those in which Zero faces his vampiric nature, or Yuki reflects on her own fear. This, admittedly, is a major subjective factor that your enjoyment of the show hinges upon, with a lot of your mileage depending on how much you, as a viewer, are tolerant of or even seeking out the brooding. Though that all isn't to say that the show doesn't try to cut the tension with some humor every now and then. However, I emphasize the word try. So much of the comedy falls flat or is just plain awkward in its delivery.
Sorry, it's nothing. I'm not myself. Just woke up from a nightmare.
I'm sure that's it. I mean, Zero's been through so much lately.
A great shoujo show needs a great heroine, which is a shame that I was super disappointed with Yuki Cross as a character. As the main character, very little of her actions progress the plot in any way, a lot of the story arcs being advanced by the puppeteering of Kaname or by the schemes of some villain. The show acts like she's being active by having her jump into action, but there isn't any point in the show where she actually defends herself when danger comes. She is consistently in need of saving by Zero, Kaname, or even the vampire supporting cast members. Anytime she happens to go to the city, you're left rolling your eyes knowing that she's going to be cornered by some vampire, attempt to fend them off, and then be rescued when someone jumps in to kill the vampire for her. Her only contributions to the show are as an audience stand-in, and to be the center of the show's most talked about aspect, the love triangle. Which brings me to my next topic. Vampire Knight is constantly classified and looked at as a fantasy romance anime. A lot of my anticipation going into the series was centered in my recollection of that aspect of it. My hopes were almost immediately dashed once the show started. The first issue to arrive with the love triangle is the fact that Zero is Yuki's adopted brother, which is gross, but to be fair, Zero is never framed in that way. He mostly stays to himself, and he doesn't seem to see Cayenne as his father, and he even keeps his Kiryu name. So for Zero, it's got some leeway. But what about Kaname? Well, with my vague memory of the show before my rewatch, I had this idea of Kaname as a cool and collected love interest for Yuki to contrast the more brash and angsty Zero. And I wasn't wrong about that. However, there are some major issues that I had with him even in the first series. First off, in some flashbacks he's portrayed as older than her, yet during the show proper they are more or less treated at the same age. This had my brain wondering about vampire aging and how it works in this show, and it had me worried about a huge age difference between the two. Of course, this was almost immediately superseded by my dislike for him once Zero and Yuki start their arrangement for Zero to subside on her blood, because Kaname is then shown to be very possessive of her. In high society gatherings, Kaname is commanding of her and unconcerned of her wishes. The show does make sure to show that Yuki does like Kaname, but his actions remain controlling. Then the big twist in Guilty happens and everything is irrevocably damaged. When it's revealed that Kaname is Yuki's brother, it's an immediate disconnect. The show tries to frame it as a simple love triangle setup, but it leaves both options as being bad in different ways. Now, before I get any comments about this, let me elaborate on Kaname being Yuki's brother. Immediately after the reveal, Kaname remarks, super grossly I might add, that
if I were truly born her older brother, then I would have been much happier.
What the show only slightly explains is that Kaname is not Yuki's blood brother, but actually the founder of the Kuron family revived by Rito. So it's as if the show is saying, don't worry, they're not actually siblings, he's just her distant ancestor, which I don't think makes it any better. There's another thing that's not even covered at all in the anime, though I feel that since I'm on the topic of romances, I have to talk about it. In the manga, Yuki goes on to give birth to children to both Kaname and Zero. So no matter the medium you experience Vampire Knight through, you're left with the question of which troubling pairing will Yuki end up in, and either left hanging with no answer, or given a non-answer explicitly. This romance anime is left with no likable pairing. Actually, I should take that back. There are two relationships that I did end up rooting for. The romance between Akatsuki and Ruka, two of the side vampires, is done pretty well, and the two are slowly shown having deeper feelings for each other that they don't express. It's left at the end of the series being pretty obvious that they'll end up together. The other pairing that I liked a lot was Kaien and Yaguri.
What are you two doing following us around anyway? This isn't some parent-teacher conference.
We're just worried because it's only the two of you, right?
When it comes to presentation, the show has an art style that, regardless of your feelings about it, does manage to bring the look of the manga to animation, with little compromise. However, this results in the anime having a mostly washed out color palette, and character designs that fall very strongly into the typical shoujo trappings, like male characters that are super lanky with long pointed chins and female characters that have eyes the size of fish bowls. When it comes to the animation, the series does little to set it apart from the majority of the stuff from that time period. To the show's credit, the majority of the direction need only focus on conversation between stylistic characters with little motion. It does show its cracks when the action takes a priority though. Characters' emotions seem to be removed from the backgrounds in which they're supposed to be inhabiting. And when the action takes a forefront, the frame rate of the show also takes a dive. The two openings and the two endings of the show share the same strengths and weaknesses. The visuals generally are generic and unremarkable, aside from the style that comes across in the first ending, Still Doll. Personally, I find the better opening to be the second one, Rondo. The music does a much better job of being memorable, and at capturing the feeling that I'm sure the series was striving for. Music overall is where the presentation of the show shines, with many of the incidental tracks doing a huge service to the vampire atmosphere with many Baroque-inspired tracks that nail the feel of castles and moonlit aristocratic beasts. The final aesthetic discussion to be had about the show is that of the voice acting. Personally, I found the voice performances to be overall decent. Ezra Wise portrays Kaname very flatly, which I can see as a deliberate choice to show the characters aristocratic. However, I do wish that he had been given a wider range to work with. Vic Mignogna does a pretty good job as Zero Kiryu, being my favorite voice performance of the three leads, though it does become a bit odd later when he is forced to act against himself, also playing Ichiro Kiryu. Mela Lee provides the voice for Yuki Cross, which is a voice that had to grow on me for the character. There are some highlights in the voice acting for the sidecast as well. Certain characters that would be unremarkable otherwise are given entertaining performances, such as with Bryce Papenbrook as Hanabusa Aido and Christopher Smith as Kaien Cross. Vampire Knight is a show that suffers from poor pacing and actively ruins what chances it had at an effective romance plot. Where it shines is in the aesthetics, mostly in the music. Overall, it builds a vampiric atmosphere that might outweigh its many flaws depending on the viewer, and leaving you waiting for it to show you a sweet dream next night. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end of the retrospective. If you enjoyed this, why not subscribe to see when I manage to make another video? Feel free to leave a comment if you have anything to say about it, or Vampire Knight. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon, with reward tiers for as little as $1 a video. Channel artwork is provided by taylorc.art at Instagram. Thank you again for watching. I'm GreyTanuki. Have a good one.